Today on the Ave Podcast, I'm joined by Bill Gagne of the World City Hoops Podcast and Anthony Batchelor, the all-time leading scorer in Canadian college basketball history, as we discuss the NBA's play-in tournament. We break down all the matchup scenarios, if the Lakers will win it all realistically from the play-in spot, the heat that's coming from the Warriors. We get into the Phoenix Suns and whether or not they're a true title threat, and if everyone in the East should be afraid of the Miami Heat, and so much more. Plus, I do a little commentary of my own podcast during the podcast, towards the end of the podcast, like a director's cut. It's going to make sense later, I promise you. South Shore Ave is available wherever you listen to podcasts. Hit that like button and that follow button. And always remember that I believe that you're a 5-star general listener. So it's only right that you reciprocate that energy in the form of a 5-star status right back to me, right? So click on all those stars, please, 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 and thank you. Please, please, please. And check out a new episode of The Stoop called Code of the Sneaks on May 28th. It's a full discussion on the sneakerhead culture. Check that out and subscribe to my YouTube channel at South Shore Ave. Once again, that's on May 28th. And check out SouthShoreAve.com for all of my past work. Once again, that's SouthShoreAve.com. It's the Ave Podcast with Cal C on South Shore Ave Radio. Let's work.
Welcome to the Ave Podcast with Cal C on South Shore Ave Radio.
Welcome to the Ave Podcast. My first guest has his World City Hoops podcast. I've had him on to break down the halfway mark of the NBA season, and in his words, he's ready to spit hot fire like Dylon. Please welcome Bill Gagne to the show. How you doing today,
Thanks
sir?
for having me.
No,
I'm good. How are you?
No problem. I'm good, man. I'm good. I enjoyed the offline chat before we started this thing.
Me too.
And my next guest is not a rookie to my shows. In fact, on the season 5 premiere of the Stoop podcast on my YouTube channel, he almost started World War III when he fought to make LeBron James a point guard to properly fit his fantasy team. And when he's not defending the honor of LeBron's position in real life, he was an all-time collegiate scorer in Canadian college basketball history in his past life. So please welcome back Anthony Batchelor to the show, to the Ave. How you doing today, sir?
Doing well. Yourself?
I'm doing good. Yeah, we still on you for that LeBron James point guard thing, the all-time fantasy basketball draft.
Listen. All right, I'll just ask this one question. Since he's been out, who's been their point guard this whole time, anyway?
Well, last night it was Talon Horton Tucker, right?
Look, the crazy thing about this is you said last night, so that means it's been multiple people, and then secondly, you can't even say the guy's name.
No.
So he's not even a regular.
Well,
he's not even a regular. So we know he's not a point guard to begin with.
Well, first of all, it's just a hard name to say. It's just like a tongue twister. That's what makes it hard. The other part is, I mean, he's a small forward. It is what it is. They run the offense to him. It is what it is. I'm just good with the position. It's fine though. The pod worked out fine. It's all your team was legit. We still got to figure out who was the ultimate winner of that. I still got to figure that out. With that said, let's get into this play-in tournament. Actually, before the season is about to end, like, what's the better way to get into this topic than to talk about Bradley Beal versus Kent Bazemore? I know you guys want to talk about that. No? Nobody wants to talk about that? Okay, never mind.
I can start off with that one, but for starters, I don't know why Bill's so mad about that. But at the same time, I think Bill's catching feelings on that one. He's in his feelings on that one, man. Like, Bazemore didn't really come at him though. He just said, he was like, all right, catch with the hamstring injury, chasing the record, whatever. And like, at the end of the day though, the real scorer, a legit scorer, is on his squad. And like he said, he's like, yo, I'm letting you know where my loyalty's at. So, I mean, Bill can score, but let's be real though. Every time that ball comes out of Westbrook's hands, in order to get them assists, that ball better not hit that ground. And you see it in every game.
The frown. But that's I mean, I'm jokingly making this comment, but yeah, I mean, with the Beal thing, I thought it was hilarious. I was like, yeah, this is an overkill. Like, why is he so mad at this? You know what I mean? I thought the same thing. I didn't think this was a big deal. But you know, let's get into the play-in tournament, which is going to be happening from May 18th to the 21st next week, which solidifies the last 2 playoff spots in each conference. So with that said, do you guys like the play-in tournament? Do you want it to stay going forward? Like, what do you got? What are your thoughts on that? I guess I'll start with you, Bill.
I mean, that's a good question, and that's what I was thinking. Do I even like it? And I think, for me, I like more basketball. My favorite part of the playoffs is usually the conference finals because you're seeing good basketball every other night. Because once you get to the finals, you're just seeing games like every 3 days. Whereas I just want to watch more basketball. So I'm going to say I like it because I get to see more competitive games. Do I totally understand it right now? I mean, I'm getting to the age where I'm that old guy who's like, get off my lawn. So I don't know how much I like things changing,
especially
but I like more I like more basketball. So I'm going to say that I like it, and I'll just get used to it.
Yeah. Well, what about you, Anthony? What about you?
I love it.
You love it?
Not just like I love it. I think now with the way the game has changed in terms of the game has sped up. It's now harder for people to maintain their bodies. So now you see more movements. And I consider it the Popovich movement because he started it with the load management. A lot of people didn't watch it, but he started where he's like, I got to rest my players. And everyone's kind of followed suit. So now you got a lot of teams where they're like, I'm not going to play my guy this game. We got a back-to-back. I'm not going to play this guy this game. So now teams are taking advantage of what they have in terms of their squad being how it's been set up. So now let's say, a Clippers team. I mean, they're terrible right now, in my opinion. But you got the Clippers team playing. I got the advantage to sit Kawhi but let PG play. And we're playing, and as I'm watching it, the Charlotte Hornets. Mind you, both of them are playing right now. But if I sit them against Charlotte Hornets and they're a terrible team, which they're not this year. They're doing well. I get away with it, and I get that win. So now I feel that these teams that are playing this load management game, say they're playing this and they're not in that first spot, and we'll get to. I hope we get to this point where we talk about how LeBron's getting all spooked about this. But you become either that 1-5 or was it the 1-7, 1-16 that makes it that doesn't have to do the play-in. But now, if you fall and now you're in that 7 to 8 spot and you got to do the playing game, that load management may have hurt you. So now management may have to think about that. So now it's forcing people to actually play the game of basketball instead of doing this whole business mind of things where I got to make sure my player is not getting injured, which is good. But at the same time, they're not thinking about the health of the players. They're thinking about the money. So in a sense, it just kind of forces you to play the game and keeps the basketball game pure, more than turn into a business aspect.
Yeah, that I mean, good point. I mean, it's interesting because with that Spurs thing, and I don't disagree with that, but I always feel like, the misconception was that was out of necessity for those guys because, like, their core players were old. You know what I mean? Like, Duncan at that point when they were doing it, Duncan was like in year 16, year 17. So, as a team that's, constantly preparing to play, have lengthy playoff runs because very few times through Duncan's career, were they out of it in the first round. They always at least made, conference finals, second round finals. It was always one of the 3. So you're always prepared to play the long game. You know what I mean? So you can't keep playing guys 82 all the time in year 16 and not think they're going to be able to last another 2 months or potentially another 2 months. So like for those guys, it was out of necessity. I think people took it and kind of ran with it. Now with sports science and, you're looking at, you look at it from that aspect, the analytics and everything of it, it kind of makes guys make those decisions now where you're like, okay, well, you know what? We can only handle this amount of mileage really over the course of the season. So if we can scale it back, 10%, that kind of thing, then ultimately it's a good thing for us if we're going to, have a long stretch. That's why with the Lakers, it's like, people aren't like worried. At least Laker fans aren't worried because they're like, hey, as long as LeBron and AD are healthy by the time, next week starts, or, if they're not in the play-in game by the 23rd, then, we're good. We're good to go. Like these guys are healthy. They're going to make it to the long stretch. But I agree with you, too. I think continuity is another part of it as well. You do need that rhythm as a team. You need a rhythm as yourself, as an individual, but you also need that rhythm as a team. And I think especially defensively, that's where you kind of need these things. You know what I mean? So
you saw it. You saw it last year with the Clippers that their core group didn't play together enough, and then when they hit the playoffs and the rubber met the road, they didn't look that great. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They didn't play well together. So yeah, you're right. You do need to have that continuity of roster throughout the season. The advantage the Spurs had was the continuity of the roster year over year.
Right.
Which is what we don't see now. And I think the play-in tournament is a really interesting change to everything. And I love Anthony's response, like, no hesitation. I love it. And I was like, oh, all right, well, let's get all in with both feet.
But can I ask this question, though?
Go ahead.
What has changed within the game other than the speed, than the pace of the game? I feel like with this game now, we're doing load management, but yet no one's getting beat up like they were back in the day. I'm an 80s baby, so I grew up watching basketball back in the 90s. You're playing rough basketball. You're getting no whistles. You better earn those calls unless you're Jordan.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, here now, you can look at a ref, and if you have at least 5 years, maybe we can shorten it down to maybe 3. You look at a ref the wrong way, and he's like, maybe I'll blow the whistle on the next one.
Right.
You're going to the free throw line. So now the game is slowing down by putting people on the free throw line and whatnot. But as opposed to back in the 90s, late 90s, maybe early 2000s, you weren't getting the whistle. So the game, I feel, is getting easier than it is getting harder. So now with this playing, it's making it harder again. So now people are like, man, we can't play games no more. Like, we got to be serious because, again, I go back to LeBron. LeBron's talking about the person should be fired, but it's crazy. LeBron wasn't saying nothing about this last year because they were at the top of the rankings.
Exactly.
But now they went from the top of the rankings and dropped all the way down to that playing spot. And now the thing is, let's imagine that team that they were playing against in the playing game was Sacramento, New Orleans, maybe Minnesota. I don't think he'll be speaking any of this foolishness, but he's going to be against the likes of Golden State, Memphis, San Antonio. The thing is, you got with San Antonio a coach that could clearly outcoach Coach Vogel easily. With Memphis, you got a bunch of young bucks. I would say I'm not too worried about them, but at the same time, the Lakers don't have to worry about them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You've got Golden State. You don't want to see Steph. And you definitely don't want to see Draymond because you done already seen him at least 3-4 times already anyways. He already knows what's going on. So I hear the sense of urgency on LeBron's part where this man, he spooked. And with AD, listen, AD is good. I'm not knocking AD, nor am I knocking LeBron. But at the same time, it's not just going to be up to those two guys because if you got 5 guys on the player on the court playing against just 2, if you want to play 5-on-2, by all means you can do that. But I'm telling you right now, you're not going to win the game. And if we're doing a playing game and everyone's underestimating the Golden State Warriors because they don't have Klay Thompson, because everyone looks at Golden State as they're not a good team, but they're not a bad team. And I know I go at your brother about Wiggins. We'll leave that for another time. But at the same time, if someone's not paying attention to one guy and they want to have their defensive assignments on one man and Steph Curry, you're gonna have a problem. It's still the NBA at the end of the day.
Yeah, and on top of that, it's one game. I think that's the beauty of it. Like, I'm a fan of it for now. Like, of this whole play-in thing. I'm not 100% sure if it should be a long-term thing though. Only in the sense that I don't believe that the 7th seed should be involved in there. Like, at the end of the day. So in a few years, it should just maybe be the 8th seed. If anything, just make it eligible for only the 8th seed. Like, I agree. And that's the only part I agree with LeBron in that sense. It's just because of the fact that, like, the 7th seed, I think right now the Lakers are the 7th seed, they're 40-30. Should they be in a position where they may not make the playoffs? It's a little weird. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like, I totally agree with you. In the same sense, you're like, dude, like, you like, kind of shut up because you were last year you were saying something completely different, you know? So But it's like but I do understand that aspect. Long term, I don't know if having the 7th seed in there should make sense. But the one thing I will say though is that it makes the season more exciting. You know what I mean? Like the teams basically, like how it was in the past, prior to this pandemic, was the season ends in the middle of April. I would say probably by the middle of March, there's about 10 teams that knows their season is over. So they're basically just tanking games. Bill's got a sore toe, so we're just going to keep him out the whole season. You know what I mean? Like, that's just how it went before, right? Like, my back is sore, so instead of missing 2 weeks, I'm missing the rest of the season. And all the G League players and the rookies and the certain guys that I want to make decisions on, they're going to play. And at the same time, they're going to make my team tank, and then at the same time, it's going to help my chances of maybe getting a high lottery pick, right?
Yeah, we're also seeing a change in the attitude. I grew up watching the 90s basketball too, but it wasn't looked at the same in the sense that teams view players as assets, and they want to get the most out of that asset for the longest period of time. So resting them and increasing their longevity is important. Players, though, are these little corporations who realize, I need to make sure I play as long as I can because this money isn't around forever, and I got to make the most of it. So the system is definitely benefiting both of them. I love the idea of the NBA evolving and doing something different, because how many more times do you want to see the playoffs start with a 1-8 matchup that's a 5-game series where you're just like, why are we watching this? I want a little more excitement, and I think this can bring it. I do think having the 7, 8, 9, 10 makes it a little more interesting than just the 8.
Yeah.
Because, you've got the idea that LeBron could, if you listen to some of the rhetoric, they could have been playing the Clippers. An LA round 1 series, how cool would that be?
Which
I think there's a lot of stories.
Yeah, which I will definitely get into later, but go on.
It just makes for more storyline, and we are talking way less about tanking because of the play-in than we did in the past.
Which I think is ultimately a good thing. Right?
Yeah. And that's not my own analysis. I stole that from Zach Lowe's podcast, so I don't want to sit here and go, yeah, I'm a genius. Like, it's true. It does take away from us talking about like how bad Detroit has been and how bad OKC has tried to tank in the last few weeks of the season.
Well, thank God for Casey getting an extension. Good for him, because I honestly thought the way they were folding, I'm like, man, he's going to lose his job. So good for him that they've extended him. You know what I mean? At least he's going to get paid out a few more years. Good on him.
I don't understand that.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised by it, to be honest with you. But I'm happy for him, man.
Dude,
hey, I'm happy for him.
Dude, I was trying to win my fantasy league, and it's a head-to-head league. So, like, I was trying to backload my roster with guys playing 5 games in the last week, and Detroit played 5 games. So I had, like, 4 guys from Detroit on my roster. Literally, they were splitting the minutes. You were looking at guys playing, like, 23, 24 minutes, and I'm like, oh, management told him you need to do this. Like, they're not going to fire him because they're like, you need to lose because we want to win Cade Cunningham.
Right.
I can't blame him for that,
Yeah, no, for sure.
I don't know what's hard to say, because we're talking about Dwayne Casey looking at how he was coaching with the Raptors, and you're mad because he only plays through 2 players, and you have to move the ball. They all know where the ball's going. Then you move him to Detroit, and now he's playing this game where he's spending minutes. Now, I hear exactly what you're talking about when it comes to fantasy, because now I'm a FanDuel guy. And I'm like, I have to stay away from Detroit because I don't know who's going to get what. I don't know who's going to be used. I don't know who's going to get the minutes. And if I pick one guy, all of a sudden, he's only getting 20 minutes, and I'm like, man, I just wasted money on this guy. It's crazy.
But that's only like the last month of the season, right? The beginning of the season, you'd be picking up Jeremy Grant like nobody's business,
running him like he's in a Preakness, right?
But Jeremy Grant, I feel like he was going off for the first 2 months, and then all of a sudden he started steering away from him. And then started going towards Bay. And then it's like he's picking who he wants to showcase first. And then, like, Jeremy Grant, obviously, because of the contract. Then it went a little bit on Plumlee's side, but that didn't last too long. And then it turned into Bay. And then all of a sudden, Josh Jackson gets a little bit of play. And then now it turns into Isaiah Stewart now gets in because now he's sitting people. I'm like, man, Dwayne Casey, I always had a problem with him to begin with, and I don't know if this might be a bias, but man, he angers me.
And it always comes back down to fantasy. It always comes back down to fantasy. Such is life. But but it's funny. Before we move on to the next question, though, it's funny because when you look at this, like I think a perfect example of why this play-in game or this play-in tournament works is a team like the Wizards. A team like the Wizards, in the past would have shut their shit down back in March. You know what I mean? And or at least shut the season down at a certain point. But because going on this run has made them exciting, and now they got a legitimate shot if they can get Beal back, to at least make the playoff, which for a team that wants to keep Beal and for a guy like with Beal who wants to kind of stay in that Washington, the DMV area, it's probably a decent scenario, especially now they're getting a little bit of fans back and stuff. Like a team like them is kind of like a perfect example. They're in the 10th spot. They really shouldn't have been in this scenario at this point, right? But like because they got so hot because they still have a chance to make the playoffs. So it kind of keeps them engaged. Where it's like before they might have just said, you know what, Russell, we may have to cut your legs off for this season, but we got to shut you down. Like you have an ankle sprain that's kind of severe, quote unquote severe. So guess what? You're sitting. Beal, guess what? You're sitting, and now we're throwing the ball in Hachimura's hands. For the next 2 months or next month and a half or whatever it is until the season's over. But now you have a legitimate shot. Like those games are now for Washington are much more exciting than they would have been without this play-in tournament. With that said, what's your prediction? Like who do you think will end up playing in the play-in tournament? So this may require you guys to go on your app a little bit, but
like if you just do the math, the Wizards, if they win one game or Chicago loses a game, that's it. So I think the things are pretty much locked in where they are. Like Sacramento has to win out the rest of their games to do that. I mean,
it's not going to happen.
They're the Sacramento Kings. It's just logic dictates that won't happen. So I think the slots are locked in. The interesting part is like, where does it land with the Lakers and the Mavs? Like, can the Lakers sneak in to the 6, or are the Lakers kind of happy at the 7 and they play the Suns? It's a really interesting chess match in that now teams may almost be able to say, I want this specific matchup, so I'm going to jockey for the 6 or the 7 slot, or we're going to move around in the 2-3 slot if the standings are close. It's almost interesting that they can do that with this scenario. Because do you really think, and I don't know how much you guys understand about the play-in scenario, but and you can correct me if I'm wrong. The Lakers just have to win one game. Mm-hmm. So if the Lakers win one game, then Golden State waits for the winner of Memphis and San Antonio, and Golden State has 2 chances to win one game against those 2 teams.
Right.
It'll be very interesting to see how all of that plays out. I mean, I am more interested in the West than the East for sure, because I think Boston just lost Jaylen Brown. I really like Charlotte. I think LaMelo Ball is like one of my top 3 players that I love watching. And I haven't seen enough of the Pacers, so I think the East is a lot more interesting from a play-in standpoint.
Well, they almost had a WWE contest last week, if you remember, with the assistant coach, Greg Foster, who's always been a loose cannon, by the way, if you remember back on Utah in the 90s. So, I mean, that's their story right now. Injuries and slap boxing between their own guys. But with that said, it's interesting because I'll look at the West right now. I think pretty much where everything is laid out, unless San Antonio implodes, they got 3 more games to play. Both them and the Kings have 3 more games to play. Unless they implode, I mean, they're probably locked into that 10th spot. Memphis and Golden State could possibly switch. That's probably is worth bearing watching because Memphis got 3 games left. They're only half a game behind. But it's funny because with the Lakers, and I understand what you're saying with the Lakers, but the Lakers, I mean, the Lakers can honestly they can go as high as 5th because they're only a game behind Portland and Dallas. But the problem is they can't pick and choose which opponents they want to play.
No.
You know what I mean? I'm going to get to the Lakers in a second, but with the way I look at it right now, just looking at schedule, out of the 3 teams between the Lakers, the Mavs, and the Blazers, the Blazers by far have the toughest schedule. They play the They play the Suns tonight, and then they play, I believe, Denver on like Saturday or Sunday. Whereas Dallas might be playing the Harlem Globetrotters tonight, and who are they playing? They're playing the Raptors tomorrow. They're playing the Raptors tomorrow, which is basically shut it down for the season, and the Timberwolves, which is basically going to be doing the same. And then the Lakers are playing. They're playing the Pacers, who, like I said, they're basically imploding, and I think LeBron and AD are going to play that game. So, they're looking to get that victory to get in some sort of rhythm. And then again, the last game of the year, they're playing the Pelicans, who's missing their entire front court.
But it doesn't matter though.
So
it doesn't matter though.
What does it matter?
It doesn't matter though because Blazers got the tiebreaker.
Right, but I'm saying if the Blazers don't win. If they win all the way out, they're fine. But if they don't win all the way out, now it's a problem, right? Like they could be either 6 or they can be in that playing game. But they have the toughest schedule. You know what I mean? So, but the thing is, they are playing well though. So they won their last 5. They won 9 of their last 10. So they're in a position where if they continue to work on that energy, they're going to be fine. But it's just if they falter, it could be a problem.
They're definitely beating Denver tonight. There's no Michael Porter.
Well, no, they're playing the Suns tonight. They're playing the Suns tonight.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, my mistake. I'm looking at this. The stats here. The playing tournament. The guy here. So yeah, they're playing the Suns. Suns, a better defensive team. Portland, no good at that. So yeah, you know what? You're probably right. Yeah, Portland probably get that L tonight. Can I ask something though? With the Eastern Conference, I'm now looking at this whole playing tournament thing. As much as I say it's making it more exciting, I've fallen into the trap of Adam Silver. so I'm looking at this and I'm looking at how I don't know if anybody has I have my conspiracies on some of the things that happens in this league, but then again it's a different world obviously. But I'm looking at this. You got the Lakers going against Golden State. All right, winner of that goes to the 7th seed and plays Phoenix. Lakers don't want to see Phoenix. Let's just be real.
You sure?
Or do that? You think you? I'm
Are you sure?
They don't want to see it. You want to know why I say that? Because now the Lakers had one of the slowest paces in the league. Why? Because of LeBron James. Because why? Because he's a point guard. We'll leave that alone. So by him slowing the game down, they now have to force to play a half-court game. The Lakers cannot thrive on playing a half-court game with the Phoenix Suns, especially when you have this team being led by Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, and then Mikal Bridges, and then you have Jay Crowder. These guys are stacked. I don't think you want to play a half-court game with these guys. So now...
Okay, so I'm going to cut you off there. What happens when we're going to get into a half-court game? The Suns now, they got to guard the other side of that. And you're going to get into a P&R with LeBron and AD and no proven playoff performer other than Chris Paul?
Check this out. I'm glad you brought that up. The first problem we have here is you have LeBron James setting up the offense, okay? LeBron James has 0 handles. LeBron basically plays off of power. So if you see LeBron back up the half court, which he loves to do, and then power his way all the way down to the free throw line, 18 feet from the hoop, which I don't understand, but now you have someone like Mikal Bridges that's going to make him turn every single time, or Jay Crowder, you can flip that every single time. It's going to be very difficult on him. And now, if you don't have a legit ball handler, what do? Your half-court offense is now it's suspect now.
If I was a betting man and you were offering me this bet, I would be doubling down on it.
I would put my paycheck on this. I'll put my paycheck on this.
All right. Well, let's not get too out of hand here. But I'm like,
so
you told me LeBron has no handles.
Well, Dennis Schroeder's supposed to be back by the I believe by the play-in because he's out because of the COVID protocol. So I don't know if he has symptoms, if he's just if he's quote unquote asymptomatic. Like I don't know, but he's out because of that, right? So it all depends on what the conditioning he's in by that point in time. But he would be their ball handler. He would be the guy that that will kind of like give, I guess, LeBron some relief, which is kind of what he's there for, right? In that aspect. So,
could I ask this question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think LeBron James is a good one-on-one defender?
At this stage, no, not really. I think he
like in one game or for the whole season.
No, I'm talking a 7-game series here.
He picks his spots, but not really. No,
not at 36 years old. I mean,
okay. This is why I'm saying this, because I can't discredit LeBron James. LeBron James is good. But now when you do all this whining and all this so-called foolishness he's doing, he's Hollywood now. I don't like it. And it makes me think that this is not about basketball no more.
Well, I wonder because, again, like I know we're kind of like overshooting this right now, but in terms of if they were to, meet up with the Suns, the problem is even at his stage, who is he going to be guarding that he has to be threatened by? You're not putting him on Booker at this point.
No, you're not going to.
So he's going to either be guarding with Mikal Bridges, which is he's kind of like a 3-and-D player, or Crowder, which is kind of the same thing.
You're right. The crazy thing about this is, it's crazy you say that because we're talking about someone that's considered one of the greats. If this was Kobe, he's guarding Devin Booker. LeBron James, not guarding Devin Booker.
Right.
No, but you're getting sidetracked.
Yeah, you're right. I am. I'm getting off. So let's go back to where we're going here. So now, given that he's not going to guard the main guy, he's probably going to have Mikal Bridges where he thrives with his defense. At the end of the day, though, it's still going to be a problem because now, other than AD's not going to help off their shooter. Their main guy is Devin Booker. So now, how do you now stop the Phoenix Suns? Because if you got Chris Paul, who is a pass first, a legit point guard, but can still score because he knows how to read the defense, you're going to run into problems. So how do the Lakers now stop the Suns, who are more multifaceted compared to the Lakers, where they really only have 2 players?
Yeah, my point is going to be Phoenix hasn't made the playoffs in a decade, and if we're going to treat the regular season basketball the same as we're treating the postseason, that's going to be a misjudgment. Right? We still need to see DeAndre Ayton and Devin Booker and all these guys do it in the bright light. When it's 2-2 and you know what's happening, or it's 2-1, or it's 3-2, when the lights come on, do you think they are going to perform better than potentially one of the greatest, if not the greatest player ever, depending on where you are in this discussion? Do you not think that carries some weight?
Well, I think it was funny because I think if I'm the Lakers, out of all the seeds, I want that 7th seed, right? Like I don't want the 8th seed because Utah. I think it's funny. Like I know Utah kind of gets, even though they're the best record in the league, they kind of get overlooked in the sense as being like a serious championship contender. But I think they have the playoff wars to kind of go on a lengthy run. You know what I mean? Like, you got to lose before you win. They've the last few years, they've gone through some tough playoff series. So I don't think them meeting up with LeBron that's not going to shake them. And for somebody like the Clippers, they want to see LeBron, and that's going to be a bloodbath series, which we'll get into in a moment as well. But they want to see LeBron, they want to see AD. That's the whole Battle of LA thing. Right. So, and if you're Denver, Denver they don't have, Jamal Murray, unfortunately, now. And so if they can work their way up to the 5th seed, then, I mean, that's amazing too. But I think, if they end up where they are, and especially if they can win that 7th, 8th game, that's perfect for them, because I think meeting up with Phoenix is probably like it's only Chris Paul and Jay Crowder that's got that experience. I agree with you in that sense. But with that said, going back to I guess what I wanted to say before was looking at it here, I think just based on what I was saying before about the scheduling, I think there's a chance that Portland may be 7th. So I think if Portland ends up 7th, they're going to be playing Golden State, and then I think the Spurs and Grizzlies remain the same. And then I think Golden State beats Portland because for some reason, Steph, I don't know, man, he just has it out for them every time he sees that Trailblazers uniform. He just goes nuts every time he plays them. Just historically, he always goes crazy on Portland. So I think if they're put in that position, I could see them winning. And then if that's the case, then it's going to be Portland versus the Grizzlies playing in the 8th game, which will be the same result that happened last year, which will be Portland, obviously winning, and then they're going to be facing Utah in the first round. Looking at the East here, Boston 7th, the Hornets 8th, Pacers 9th, Wizards 10th. That's pretty much going to stay the same at this point as to what Bill was saying before. With that said, how do you guys see the result of that happening?
I don't see Boston going any further. I think they're going to throw in the towel. Just with the injuries that's coming up now, that they don't have the players needed to make a legit run at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Can I hijack this for a second?
Go ahead.
I guess the real question I want to ask is, does the play-in, is there any of these 8 teams in the play-in, and I think we just answered this question before, do any of these 8 teams in the play-in make a difference in the second round? Do any of these teams make the second round? As interesting and as sexy as it is to see this more fun basketball, in your mind, there's 8 teams here. Which one has the best chance to make the second round?
Oh, in the East?
Golden State.
You're talking about
in the East. Of any of them.
In the
Golden
East,
State,
no.
Right?
No, we're talking in the East, Anthony, in the East.
Or both. Either one.
No, but I want to focus on the East just because the East is, we already discussed the West part. But okay.
The East. Okay. Any team, all right, so in the East, I would say Indiana.
Really? Even with all the implosions and injuries and stuff?
The thing is Miles Turner completely done for the season?
I think he is. Because I think he tore something in his toe. I don't think it's just like a sore, and it doesn't sound like he's coming back anytime soon. Okay,
Karis LeVert, I know he's out tonight. Is he done for the season, though?
No, I think he's playing. I'm not sure about Brogdon, though, because Brogdon's been hurt for the last little while.
That guy disappointed me, too. Listen, he's not done indefinitely, but that's another player. I think we're not giving Indiana enough credit. I think we've kind of just thrown them under the bus, or it's not under the bus, but I think we just kind of swept them under the rug and forgotten about them. And it's easy to do that, especially with this play-in tournament. I think Indiana, out of these 4 teams, with Washington, Boston, and Charlotte, I think Indiana is probably the biggest underdog in this play-in tournament. With Charlotte, they're a good team, but as Bill mentioned with Phoenix, they're young. I still believe more in Phoenix just because of who's running the team in Chris Paul. But now,
the thing with Charlotte is Gordon Hayward playing. We're talking about teams that have a lot of injuries right now. In my mind, none of the 4 teams in the East will have a chance of making the second round.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think every one of them is going to get pimp slap basically.
Really?
Like if the 7th or the 8th team that's going into in the East, you're either meeting Philly or you're meeting Brooklyn, or at this stage, well, no, you're either meeting one of those 2 teams at this point, because I think I can see them kind of holding those spots at this point. So I think those teams are going to just pimp slap either one of these 4 teams here. I think at this point.
I would rather play Brooklyn, if anything. You probably think I'm nuts for that, but
really.
Brooklyn plays zero defense. So I think if you can go bucket for bucket, your chances are pretty high.
Well, you're also dealing with, if you're looking at Brooklyn, you're dealing with a big 3 that has a big injury history. Both KD and Kyrie have missed time, and James Harden is notorious for disappearing in the playoffs. So sure, if you want to play one of those 2, and I'm going to say one of the advantages Philly has, and I really like Philly, is Doc Rivers. You know, say what you want. That guy can coach. He's been through all of it. He's got that team playing well. They'll be on a mission. I would much rather, if I'm one of those teams coming out of the play-in, I would much rather play Brooklyn. Still going to eat you. They're still going to destroy you, but I would rather play that.
But how does Doc now manage the egos of Joel Embiid and Simmons when he couldn't handle Kawhi and PG?
I think especially for this season, they're on the same page. And I've been mentioning this many times throughout the year that I think that both sides have come in with a chip on their shoulder. Philly, because they kind of underachieved last year. You know, Embiid got his name written out of like the best player list last year by the end of the year for some reason. And then you saw what happened with the implosion in Clipperland, right? With Doc Rivers, and then he loses his job. He takes that Philly job. I don't even know if it was even 7 days. It might have been less than a week, really and truly, by the time he got fired to when he got hired by Philly. And you know, you want to prove yourself. Like with all the the Game 7 statistics of him losing more than he wins in Game 7. I forgot what the exact number is, but he did win a championship. You know what I mean? Like he did, bring his team in, and he has been in tough playoff series and been successful.
He is a really good coach, and the whole Game 7 thing, I think he's got the record for being up 3-1 and losing series. With that Celtics team that he won with, every series went 7 games. Remember, they dressed in black every Game 7. Mm-hmm. Remember that?
Yeah. So I watched and started talking crap at that point.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's a little bit of a little bit too much with Doc on this. Like, he was a good coach in Orlando when they had nobody.
Mm-hmm. I remember that too.
He's been a good coach
before T-Mac.
Yeah, when they had the Clippers and they lost everybody that one year, they were one of my favorite teams to watch because Doc coached them up, and they won a ton of games by being a really good team. So I will never, as much as you can criticize, like, you're going to pick Steve Nash as a better coach than Doc Rivers or Budenholzer or, maybe Spoelstra you're going to put in there as a coach who could outcoach him. But in the East, he's the top 3 of coaches right now. So I think he's definitely an asset.
Right. So, like I said, I think for me, I guess just to wrap up this segment here, I think for me I would say Charlotte and Boston. I see Boston winning. That's not Boston. So I see Charlotte winning. I see Charlotte actually getting the 7th spot, and I see Boston having to play against, I would say, Washington. And because they're so matched up, I think Washington is gonna beat them. And then, like I said, they're gonna go in that. Actually, no. Let me phrase that. I can actually see the Wizards. I see a strong scenario where the Wizards are gonna lose based on history. You know why? Because his name is Russell Westbrook. And he does not make the decisions in playoff and big playoff moments. Now, this isn't a big playoff moment because it's a playing game, but would it totally stun you if he did something, like if he made a critical mistake or took an ill-advised shot or tried to go 1-on-4 at the wrong time? Like, would that shock you if that happened? If they're if he's in that play, if they're playing in that 8th place game, not really. It wouldn't shock me. You know what I mean? Like, I could see them winning. But it really wouldn't shock me if that's what happened.
Yeah, I agree.
But Wizards might not have Beal. We don't even know if he's going to be ready for these playing games.
That's true too, because it's a hamstring, right?
Right.
Yeah, and those injuries they kind of linger. And I don't know what the grade quality of strain that he has, but it's they linger. So it'll be interesting to see. But I can see a scenario where I know everybody's like, and we'll get to Washington in a second too, but I know everybody's, like saying, oh, Washington, like, you don't want to see them, but I'm like, we'll see. Do you think the Lakers will still make it to the NBA Finals if they have to play in the play-in tournament?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Why?
I don't know.
They may not even get out of the first round.
Okay. And it's because of the Phoenix factor that you're talking about a few minutes ago.
No, if they don't see Phoenix, and if they see Utah, it's even worse. They got problems. There's a reason why this guy's mad. He's mad for a reason. He knows exactly what's going on right now, man. He's like, yo, we messed up. We've now dropped. We have to face all these teams. This is way too much work. We have a problem because now if we got to go through 2 teams and it's only 1 game, just to get into the playoffs to begin with is a problem. So now the 2 teams that we got to go against either way is a problem. So I don't know, man. Honestly, I don't see them getting to the finals.
If they have to play in the play-in.
For the play-in, it's tough to say, man. It really is.
No, but I mean, like, if they have to play in the play-in, like, you don't see any shot of them making the finals.
No.
Okay. And what about you? Bill?
I want to take a bigger picture look at this and think, if somebody had told you 6 months ago or before the season started that the New York Knicks and the Atlanta Hawks are going to be in the playoffs, that the Toronto Raptors are going to be eliminated, that the 1 and 2 seed in the West are going to be Utah and Phoenix, and the Lakers will not be a top 4 seed, you probably would have been like, get out of here. But now, I couldn't predict anything. I could not tell you, yes, this team is and this team isn't, because it's a crapshoot. The Lakers, they have a very, very hard road. Is it possible? Sure. Why not? I could also win the lottery, but that's not going to happen more than likely. So,
and if you do, can I get 5%? Sorry, go on.
Totally.
Thank you.
You stamped it. It's recorded.
Yes. Legally binding. This podcast is legally binding. Go on.
But the thing is, like, who would have guessed any of this? Nobody. So, do I think the Lakers could beat Phoenix? Yes. Do I think the Lakers could beat Utah? Yes. Do I think it's likely? No. Do I think the Clippers could just implode and totally destroy themselves? Totally. Do I think the Knicks are worth getting to the second round? Maybe. I don't know anything. I don't know anything, and I think it would be ludicrous to put any weight to what we think right now, given how the season turned out.
It's kind of a reflection of how the season has been this whole year.
Yeah. I mean, okay, here's the other side. Let's go the other side, Anthony. If the Lakers made it to the finals, if they made it to the conference finals, would you be totally dumbfounded? Or would you just be like, hey, LeBron just showed why he's LeBron? Like, the narrative can go either way.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Man, that's
or are you
really
just
tough.
or are you just going to be that angry?
No, I won't be that angry. Now, I will ask this question though. I'm more set on Utah working the Lakers. Phoenix, I feel that it will be possibly a 7-game series, but I think they'll pull it off. So I think it will be battle for sure with Phoenix. But with Utah, I think Utah will handle them. Thing is this.
Yeah.
So when you ask if they made it to the conference finals, that means if we're talking that they're going through Utah, would I be dumbfounded? Yes, I would be. If they went through Phoenix, no, I wouldn't be. Because if they go through Phoenix, they got to touch either the Clippers or Dallas. At that point, I can see them. If they get past Phoenix, okay, you know what? They're okay at this point. But now, if you beat Utah and then you go through Portland, again, you better figure out how you're going to stop Damian Lillard or CJ McCollum or Joseph Nurkic or your 3-and-D guy in Covington, because now you got some problems there.
Well, I mean, when you're at the bottom of the standings, there's a reason you're at the bottom of the standings, right? It's not a fluke that the Lakers are at the bottom of the standings. Injuries, they haven't gelled, certainly, but they are the one anomaly in all of these play-in teams, and you guys can tell me your opinion, that could actually make it to the second round.
No, absolutely. Like,
right? So that's why the storyline's exciting.
The thing with me though is that I'm not 100% sure, and I've been watching the Lakers games for the last week and a half, 2 weeks. One, because Anthony Davis is on my fantasy team, so I want to keep track. The other part of it is just I've been up late for the last little while, and these Laker games come on late, so I'll be watching. So, but I think the problem is, like, I'm not 100% sure if Anthony Davis is gonna make it through. Like, I think last year, like playing with LeBron, because the knock on him, as we all know, was health, right? He's anytime like he gets poked in the eye, he's missing 2 games. If the ball hits his finger a certain way, he's fracturing his finger. You know what I mean? He's out 2 weeks. Like it's the whole thing. But I think playing with LeBron, it's made him better, only in terms of playing through injuries. But the team right now isn't at full strength, as we know. Their guards are all hurt because Caruso, the last game, got hurt. They haven't played together in weeks. They need the week off, so they really need that 6th seed or that 5th seed.
So let's sorry to cut you off. Let's compare the 2 teams that made it to the finals last year. So one thing that we have to take into account, and you and I, we're in agreement on this, that the Lakers' biggest problem this season has been injuries, LeBron missing time and all that. Let's take the dichotomy of Miami. Miami had all their injuries early, other than Tyler Hero, right?
Who struggled.
Jimmy Butler missed a chunk of the season. It was almost a blessing, and Miami didn't rush him back, right? They took their time. They took a long time to get all their pieces together, but they're hitting on all cylinders late in the season. Why? Because I think, in my opinion, those early injuries, that slow start, really helped them because they had the shortest offseason. The Lakers, on the other hand, started out gangbusters. If you remember, LeBron was the runaway MVP leader the first 2 months of the season, right?
I didn't think so, but go on.
Well, and then now the Lakers have everybody hurt. AD hurt. LeBron hurt. They're going into the most important time of the season injured.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest threat to the Lakers isn't Phoenix or Utah or the Clippers. It's the training room.
Yeah, and to me, that's why I don't think you want to be in a situation where you're in a one-off playoff game. And it's funny because at the same time, to touch on your point, like, if this team gets healthy by May 23rd and they're in the playoffs, there's few teams that are in the league that are built to beat the Lakers. But I think going back to Davis, though, like, he worries me the most because he's a great player. We all know that. And he has the ability to turn it on. But that guy's consistently nicked up. Like the way he's being nicked up right now, and I think even the last game he pulled his hamstring injuries. Not hamstring, sorry, his groin. So groin injuries, both of you, I'm sure, have pulled your groins once or twice in your life playing basketball. Hold on. Those injuries. Huh?
Cal, let me correct you. He hurt his ankle, and then they said it was back problems. They changed it. So apparently something he didn't injure, they changed it to something else.
But I'm saying, but in the last game, he got nicked in his face. He hurt his groin, so he basically missed the last game. But my thing is he going to be able to push through the next 2 months with every series that they're going to be in? They're going to start on the road. It's funny, 'cause I think with them, kind of like the lack of an off season between the bubble playoffs and the new season has been hard for this team. But for Davis, like, he's been one of those guys that's been punishing the most, more than other players. And quite frankly, I'm at the stage now where I don't think he's ever going to be healthy enough to be one of those guys that's going to truly carry a franchise. Because I don't think he's ever played a season. He's never played a full season. He's never played like 82 games, or in this case 72 games. He's always missed at least 15, 20 games. This is a shortened season, and he's already missed 31 games, right? So he's an incredible talent that can't stay healthy. And even in last year's finals when they're playing Miami, the amount of times he was down on bended knee, I swear to God, it was like a Boys to Men video. Like, I lost count the amount of times he was coming off the canvas. It was crazy. It was crazy. Like, I don't understand. I don't understand. Like, I've lost count. Like, seriously. Like, so to me, I'm like the fact that he kept getting back up is cool. It's all that's all good. I just don't know if he can continue to do that. He's not. I don't know if he's that player that's built to do that over the course of a long haul. So to me, that's I think injuries is the biggest thing, but I think Davis is that he's that biggest question mark. He's the $64 million question to me.
Shout out to you for the Boys to Men. Oh.
All I thought about was that video with the white sand.
Man.
You're welcome. It just came to me. You're welcome.
I'm trying to look up how many games Anthony Davis played, and I nearly fell off my chair when you said that. I was like, man. 75 games is the most games he's ever played, and he played it twice.
Right.
So he played a COVID season then. Plus 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
Essentially. He's never played 82 games. And so that's the problem I have. I'm like, just watching him play this, especially this last week. I know they played Phoenix the other night, to touch on your point, AP, Anthony, and he went off for, I think he had 42 and 12, which is a great game. But like, just watching him walk, watching him move, I'm like, man, I don't know if this guy's gonna make it, man. Like, I don't know. That's the problem, I think. Even with, for me to go into a play-in scenario with him, that's what makes it tough. It's like you're kind of extending yourself further. You know what I mean? Like, you're taking more mileage off of you at this point. You know, he's literally one twisted ankle away from just basically like folding at this point. Okay, so should anybody be fearing the Warriors?
No.
Yes.
I like the difference. Who wants to start?
Okay. You go first, Anthony.
Okay. The play-in tournament is where the Warriors should be feared. In the actual playoffs, not so much.
We're the same. Okay. What I fear from the Warriors is a 6-game series. I fear Wiggins. You know, we talked about Wiggins. Maybe he steals you a game. He plays out of his mind. Steph steals you a game. Now you're going 6 games, maybe 7, when you're like, man, I really wanted to wrap this up in 4.
I think Steph can steal too, but go on.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, that's why you would not want to face them. But at the same time, you could still win 4 in a row and beyond. Like, they have no depth. Right. You know, it's just tough go. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we're kind of on the same wavelength when it comes to that. I think all teams should fear them because of Steph. Like, he's an Avenger right now. You know, like, I think that's where you go with that. But I think at the same time, like, this team's been playing like they've been in the playoffs the last couple of weeks too, especially defensively. And it's funny because I know we keep talking about them a lot, which I didn't expect to talk about them a lot in this conversation. But say if they make it, let's say they end up being a 7th seed. Out of the teams, out of the top spots that should be the most nervous is Phoenix. Because
the crazy thing is, I actually agree with that. I actually agree with that.
You agree with that, right? Yeah, just because, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not shitting on Phoenix. Phoenix has been solid all year. They've actually surprised me because I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop and it doesn't. And I'm just like, damn, okay, like, they're really right. They're really legit now. Okay, you know, but you know, to touch on Bill's point earlier, like, they haven't been to the playoffs in 11 years, and the core parts of the Warriors, they've been through the ropes. Like, over a 7-game series, you know, I'm still going to choose the Suns. So they're going to take some wicked lumps from Golden State, just simply due to the fact that their core players are inexperienced in those moments. And I think Steph, I think, might be the worst player to play against with inexperience. Like, can you
ask this question, man?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask this question, man? So, by you saying that, almost the same tone that Bill had mentioned last year, everyone thought that Phoenix was going to lose all 8 of those games. That was the prediction from the so-called experts, and they came out 8-0.
Yeah, which is great. Like, they played well.
That's what I'm saying, and that was without Chris Paul. So they found some sort of chemistry for them to pull that off, and they didn't play bad teams. No. They played good teams.
They did.
So why now is it that Phoenix is kind of now being like, come playoff time, they're not going to be able to do it because experience. Well, they're kind of showing already, and we don't have fans, so they don't even have that on their back end. It's now pure basketball. We're going to this building. It's just another gym. What's now the difference?
Well, because Anthony, we have to find holes in somebody, or everybody would be 82-0. You got to find your inner hater and bring it out. Otherwise, there's nothing to talk about. Because I'll tell you this, I love Devin Booker's game. I think Mikal Bridges, I was on Mikal Bridges when he got drafted. I think he's somebody who in today's NBA is super valuable and impacts winning. And I think he's somebody that the Suns can ill afford to be without, because he is the glue that kind of keeps it all together. defensively, spacing, little winning plays. He lets those other guys be stars. So do I think Phoenix could go all the way? Yes. But, for the sake of argument, they have the easiest target, which is inexperience in the playoffs. If you're telling me it's Portland and Phoenix, I'm kind of still picking Phoenix. As much as it's Dame time and I love all that shit, and honestly, was there a bigger boss move than the sidestep and waving off Paul George with the game winner? Like, how do you not like that? But I would still pick Phoenix, even though they're the more battle-tested playoff team. Portland is the more battle-tested playoff team.
Yeah, that's
interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting when you look at it from that aspect. Do you want to see the Battle of LA this early? Like if it plays out where the Lakers get the 6th seed and the Clippers stay where they are, do we really want to see the Battle of LA this early?
No.
Yes.
Neither does Adam Silver.
I do. I don't care when it happens.
You don't.
I don't care when it happens. No, I just like basketball. Honestly, you know who I want to watch play? I want to watch Luka Doncic play, and that's it. Like, I will watch every game that kid plays because he just has a massive pair of cojones and just loves to play.
Where's he been at? Where's he been at the last 10 games, though?
The last 10 games? The last 30 games, he's blowing it up. He's shooting something like 46% from three or something. Like, he's as bad as he was. The tough part was how bad he played the beginning of the year. And then as we're getting down the stretch, focus is, and then the focus right now is really all the texts he's been getting, and he got ejected the other night. But Dallas has been on a run. The big question with Dallas is, what's KP going to do?
Nothing.
Is he going to be a factor, right?
Nothing.
So
That's a big question mark. That's a big question mark.
Nothing. Nothing. He's not going to do nothing.
I don't know. The reason why I asked about Luka, where he's been at the last 10 games, I mean, he may be going off in terms of the shooting percentage from behind the line, the 3-point line. But in terms of the numbers that, like the triple doubles, like this guy would be close to, if not, putting up triple double numbers. And he's not getting the boards no more. He's not getting the assists no more. So now you got to ask that question. Like, Luka's there, but now he doesn't have the help to make it look like Luka is actually there.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's the winning, right? It's the winning, and he's a winner, and they're winning, and that's what matters. And, no matter what you're going to say, my concern with the Clippers is always, are they winners? You know what I'm saying? I think the problem with the Clippers when it was Doc's downfall was that there was a lot of in-house resentment that Kawhi was taking games off, and he was the one dictating. And all those guys, like you got Pat Beverly and Montrezl Harrell and all those guys, Lou Williams, who want to play no matter what. You're trying to make instant team, and that was the problem that didn't work.
But do you think it was? Do you think it was because of that, or do you think it was more because of their resentment for Paul George?
Well, I think that's part of the equation. Here's another thing. Okay, let's talk real deal here. Okay, you remember how Steph Curry got into it with Paul George during the game, like last year?
Sure do.
You know what that was over?
No, of course.
Seth Curry is married. Seth Curry is married to Doc Rivers' daughter. Paul George cheated on Doc Rivers' daughter. Did you think Paul George and Doc Rivers were going to get along? Come on.
Come on, man. But hold on. So why trade for him then? If you knew that who the coach was going to be, why would you trade for him and give up all those picks?
It's the Clippers.
Because you want to Kawhi
that badly? It's the Clippers. Yes. It's the Clippers. It's still the Clippers. They will screw it up somehow.
Man, I think Kawhi might be resenting the fact that he actually left Toronto because he could be on his way for the third ring if you think about it. But again,
possibly,
because I'm a Raptors fan, but at the end of the day, we need a legit scorer, and Pascal Siakam ain't it. So
no, you're right. Yeah, I don't want to put that on Pascal Siakam. That's a different story altogether. I mean, I think the Clippers are the ones who are the least likely to come out of the West of the big teams.
It's interesting. I think it's funny. Like, I don't want to see this matchup this early. And I agree with you. I don't think Adam Silver wants to see this matchup this early either. They should have met up in the bubble, and they didn't. And if this scenario plays out, they're going to be meeting up way too early. Like, there's a good chance that the winner of this matchup could represent the West in the NBA Finals, because I believe a championship experience on both sides. Like the Clippers picking up Rondo, you got Ibaka, who has another 10 days to get healthy. And because he's been injured, Zubac has been gaining valuable time the last couple of months. Like to me, I think Adam Silver should just intervene and just like try to figure out a way to make sure this matchup doesn't happen until the second round. Like if it ends up that way, just switch the teams around. Just put Dallas 6th. Put the Lakers 5th. Just do it. Just get it done. Just figure out a tiebreaker to get this done. So like I think if that's the case, I think it is too early. I do want to see it. If it's in the first round, so be it. But I kind of want to see it. I kind of want to see it later. I think we deserve to see it later when there's more pressure. But with that said, let me just. I got a couple more questions, so let me just move it up quick before we go. Should the top 3 seeds in the East be watching everything Miami's doing the next few days?
Yes.
Yeah, Miami's built for the playoffs. Jimmy Butler's built to win.
Absolutely.
Be afraid. Be afraid.
Very, very afraid.
Yeah.
Very afraid.
Yeah.
I gotta agree with you on that one.
Yeah, I mean, we're all in agreement on that one, because I think it's one of those things. I don't think like they're ratcheting it up at the right time. I actually think they were better last year, like in terms of the bubble aspect of it. Because my thing is, and I'm not taking anything away from Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson and stuff, but I do wonder sometimes. I'm like, if it was a regular playoff series and they're going on the road and facing, like say like a packed house on the road where 20,000 fans are screaming against it, would they have had those same shooting performances that they did when it was in the bubble? I don't know. We will never know, but like, I don't know. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like that they got hot in the right time, and that AAU experience of being in the bubble without fans is like was great for them. And I think to me too, losing Crowder, it's going to hurt them too. Like I think that's going to hurt them in the long run, especially when he can kind of be like a small ball 4 at like a certain aspects. He's a good defender. He shoots the 3 well. You know what I mean? Like I think not having him and replacing him with like Trevor Ariza, like although Trevor Ariza is a good solid role player, I don't know. I think I would, at this stage of their careers, I would rather Crowder, for that team. I thought that was a big loss.
The thing with Miami, though, is you got to think of Miami as a whole. You can't think of Miami as the pieces.
Yeah.
Like, once they get on a roll, you're thinking of the whole thing. You're thinking about how Bam and Jimmy and Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero and all those pieces fit together, Kendrick Nunn, the depth. The scoring, Goran Dragic's playmaking. You can't think of it just as. I get your point, and you're right to an extent, but Miami just puts the package together and says, fuck the world, let's go do it.
Yeah.
You don't think that Trevor Ariza was a perfect replacement for Jay Crowder?
I think he was admirable replacement. I don't know if he was a perfect replacement, because I'm just saying at this stage of their careers. Because you got to think, how long has Ariza been in the NBA? What, like 16, 15, something like that? He's been in the league a long time. I just think at this stage, it would have been better for Crowder to be in that position. Like, I thought when they lost him in the offseason, I was like, wow, that's a big loss. Like, to me, I thought that was a big loss when they lost him in the offseason. But, like, I get it. Ariza got the experience. He's got a ring. You know what I mean? But I just feel like I think Crowder I think that would have been a bit of a better play. But like, yeah, if I'm Milwaukee and if I'm one of these teams, like, I don't know, man, you don't like, you rather, like, especially if you're one of them top teams, you rather an easier first round matchup. You know what I mean? So if I'm them, you're hoping they get a 5th or a 4th seed.
Yeah. If I'm Philly, I'm not worried about Miami as much. If I'm the Nets or Milwaukee, I'm worried.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't want them.
For sure. Should everybody be fearing the Wizards?
Next question. Hey, I had to get my kids to bed. My wife is texting me, and you're asking me about the Wizards? Come on, man.
Text to the wife. Ooh. Yeah, that. I just realized that might be a red flag. That might be a red flag. All right, let's keep going. Next question. I can't throw a joke in there.
Boys to Men used it up.
Well, you know what? Actually, here's my last question. I'll be serious. Here's my last question. Looking at the playoffs right now, right? Forget like the play-in and everything else. Just looking at the long-term view of the playoffs right now. Which is the matchup you want to see the most? Is it LA? Is it is it something in the East? Like what's the matchup you guys want to see like the most? Doesn't matter the round. Doesn't matter.
Philly and the Knicks.
Philly and the Knicks. Okay.
Who? Which one? Who?
Philadelphia and the Knicks.
Yeah, man.
Because I want to see the Knicks play like important basketball.
I say Subway Series that one. Before that, Subway Series that one. You see the Knicks in Brooklyn, and by that time, if they actually allow fans, oh my gosh, those nasty New York fans. Oh my man, that'll be must see. Because now, if they do get the fans going there, let's just say they get at 50%. The type of energy you're gonna have in those games is gonna be ridiculous.
Oh, in the Garden, you mean, with the Knicks?
Oh, Garden, Barclays Center, period. Because I mean, you don't have to go far. All you're doing right now at that point is you're just hopping the bridge. At that point.
Yeah. Oh, you mean if they meet against each other? That would be awesome. Actually.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
I mean, let's go beyond the whole fan portion of it, but just seeing Julius Randle, who was completely taking a new role, didn't think he'd actually honor this type of role, but he's held this. I mean, RJ Barrett, he's a different person on his own, but I felt like he had the confidence thinking that he was going to be the one that was going to lead this team, but clearly Julius Randle was taking it over, and very much so, he deserves it because he's had Kobe he's been under Kobe's wing. So he's learned something, and clearly he's now taking it to where he's shown it that he can actually take over a team, and no one expected it. So with that going,
I gotta leave. On that note, this has been awesome. I love you. Can't wait to do it again.
Why do you sound like what's going on here? This ain't Jimmy Kimmel.
I gotta go put my kids to bed. You guys keep going.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Calvin. My wife was texting me like, "Hey, you need to put your kids to bed," and I'm like, "Oh."
What a way to blow up the podcast. Okay. Okay. Well, I guess we'll finish answering this question, Anthony. I guess. All right.
You guys are doing amazing.
But I wanted to talk about LeBron because you seem to be a LeBron fan.
Let him go, Anthony. Let him go. Let him go.
I am totally. You can text me about it later. All right. I'm sorry I got to do this, but I got to go. I want to stay married.
All right.
Sorry, Calvin.
All right.
But
I've never had that happen on my podcast before. That's a first time, last time moment. Wow. All right then. Thoughts and prayers to a fallen soldier. God damn. I'm speechless. I mean, I shouldn't be because he did throw up the red flags like he was in a gang. But all right then. I guess on with the rest of the show. Well, actually, before we do that, before we go. Rest in peace to the soul and the backside of Bill Gagne. Can you put the red flag at half mast, please? There you go. It's catching the good one. There you go. Anyway, where was I? Rest easy, Bill. Rest easy. Maybe in your next life we can be friends again. Maybe. Next. Anthony, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, finish your point. We'll wrap up. Wow, this guy really gave me a.
Oh man, I mean, with New York going in, and what Julius Randle basically saying, I'm gonna take the torch and I'm gonna lead my team through. And then with management, not so much Dolan, but with Thibodeau actually saying, I want D Rose here to pretty much give you your next guard. They've assembled this team and has become a problem. Not so much a major problem, but a problem. So with Brooklyn coming in with their big three, I feel the biggest issue with those two, with those three is the fact that they haven't really played together. So what are we really going to see in the playoffs? So now if it comes down to the last second shot, who's taking it? Who's going to let that one guy take that shot? Is James Harden going to say, okay, fine, KD, you can take it? Or is Kyrie going to say, no, I want that right? It's going to be too much confusion. And at the same time, Steve Nash is supposed to be the one that makes that decision. But I don't think he can.
Mm-hmm. You know what series I'm interested in watching, though, the most? I would say the Bucks and the Nets, actually. Because, I mean, the way it's set up, they're most likely going to meet up in the second round. And I think everybody's kind of brushing aside the Bucks, but I think the thing with the Bucks is they play D. To me, Drew Holiday it's a massive upgrade, especially in the playoffs over Bledsoe. I think adding PJ Tucker as I think on that roster is like if he's used properly, mind you, he's going to be important at certain moments on the floor. The Nets aren't strong defensively, which takes some of the pressure off Middleton to perform. And they don't have anybody to stop Giannis, especially like if Milwaukee's going to stay with this theme of posting him up on the low block and in the mid block and having him more operate out of there, or at least in certain parts of the game. Like I think that's where instead of how it is before, where they always had him at the top and just try to make him just drive against like a wall of defenders. They're kind of cutting off angles where he's a good passer, so even if he gets double teamed out the low post, it's easier to make plays out of that, right, and make cuts and reads off of that. So, I think he's gonna have to continue making threes because he's been making it better, especially the last half of the season. Especially the Nets. I don't know if you've seen some of the games they played against each other. They leave him like wide open, like his defenders in the middle of the key. Like they really don't respect the shot to that degree. To me, don't get me wrong. I think the Nets would still win the series, but I think like that's going to be a bloodbath series. And don't get me wrong, James Harden for them is like a cheat code the same way he was in OKC, or more so now because he's more talented. Yeah. But I think like that series to me is like that's the one I can't wait for that series the most. I think it's underrated.
I would hope so, but I'm still not sold on Giannis being a jump shooter.
For
I
sure.
think at that point, you leave him that wide open. He has no choice but to shoot that ball. Mm-hmm. But the way he lets that ball fly, he don't even look like he's sure about that shot. There's no confidence in that shot whatsoever.
I think he's shooting it with more confidence than he was like last year, I would say. I'm not saying he's a better shooter. I don't know what the stats are. I'm not looking at it right now, but I think he shoots it with a little more confidence now than he did last year. But I understand what you're saying.
But right. So now, my next question now, we're now looking at, if this is the case with Giannis, letting him shoot or whatever, I'm concerned about Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton is the guy that basically closes out those games, because if you're going to put someone at the free throw line, Giannis is not that guy, being that he's shooting around 60%. Then you got Chris Middleton. You want him at the line. But now it seems to be that Chris Middleton is somewhat kind of disappeared as well. I don't know if that's with the addition of Drew Holiday, where now that offensive role that has been put in Drew's hands has now kind of messed with the mental of Chris Middleton. He hasn't been the same player that he was from last year.
Yeah.
So that's why with Milwaukee, I'm a little bit unsure. Like I feel like they wouldn't get past, even though Brooklyn has no five. Like he'd be basically going up against Jeff Green and Blake Griffin, but that's not. I don't know. I think just with the flaws that Giannis still has in terms of not being able to be a legitimate shooter, not a scorer. He can score, but in order for him to shoot, it's still a problem.
Yeah, I think so too. I just think against them, like are they going to defend them properly? Like, unless they got some stuff in the bag, they don't play defense. And that's, to me, that's where, like, I think in other series, like, I think if he was going up against, like, Philly, I would be like, yeah, I don't know about the Bucks beating Philly because their defense is really good. And by design, like, Doc Rivers is a good defender when it comes to coaching, but with, I guess we have to see what happens, but they're definitely more offense centric, and they're playing a little bit better D, but I'm like, is it going to be enough? Like, I know it's regular season, but they just had no answer for Giannis at all, like none. Those playoff games, and I'm like, I'm not sure how drastically, like, how much better it gets. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just not sure how much better it gets at that point. Like, so that's my concern, I guess. But that's the series. Other than that, I guess if LA and LA meet against each other, but like I said, I hope that's like in the second round or possibly the conference finals when that happens if it works out that way. But I know for the NBA, like, I think the worst case scenario is if the Lakers, actually lose both play-in games and they don't make the playoffs. I think that's like Adam Silver would like go insane, like on a Stern level, like on a David Stern old school level, he would go nuts. But but with that said, I mean, I don't know. Like I think those two series for sure are the ones that kind of stand out for me. And then I think the Bucks and Nets, whoever comes out of that, which most likely I think will be the Nets, of course, seeing them go against Philly will be crazy as well. Yeah. So it's interesting to see. I think the playoffs is going to be, it's going to be fun, man. And I think the playoffs are going to be definitely, I'm actually looking really forward to it, especially these the warm up of the play-in tournament and stuff. I'm looking forward to that. And because everything's just been so topsy-turvy this year, I'm kind of like, yo, man, I can't wait. I can't wait to see like how unorthodox this gets. I think it'll be nice to like have like an unorthodox champion or somebody that just comes out the blue and just wins it all. Like I think that would be great for the sport. Personally, for me, I know everybody says Lakers should win it, and that's what the league may want, but it would be cool to see somebody else that you're not expecting come in and just take the title. I think that would be dope.
Right. Like I would say Portland. I don't know if that might be a bias from the Pacific Northwest, but oh man, Portland, man. I'm a diehard Raptors fan, but other than those guys, Portland's always been that team where I like Dame's loyalty and his passion to the game, how he approaches it every single game. Even CJ, I feel like CJ doesn't get enough credit. I thought he was a little too cocky when he came out of Lehigh, but man, that guy, he's nasty. He's nice, man.
Oh, he's nice.
And then with Joseph Nurkic, man, I think he's got that chip on the shoulder. The fact that they went ahead and traded him from Denver for Jokic, mind you, good move on management's part, but I feel like he's just holding that. He's just saying, yeah, you guys want to get rid of me? Nah, a bad move. I think you should have found a way to keep me, and then we could have did something with that. And I think he's been doing well with that as well. It's just unfortunate that he had that gruesome injury, but I think Portland has the pieces. It's just unfortunate that Zach Collins got hurt, but because if he was playing the 4, and then you have Covington coming in maybe back at the 3, oh man, Portland would be dangerous, super dangerous.
You know what? I would like to see them go on a nice run. It would be great to see, personally. Like, that's why I kind of hope they stay in that 5th spot because it just sets them up better to go a little bit further. You know what I mean? If they're going against Denver in the first round without the way Jokic is playing has been amazing. But if you can go against them without Murray, because I think that Murray injury is going to catch up to them in the playoffs, obviously. And then, you're going up against Utah in the second round. It's like it just sets up for a better opportunity to, you know what I mean? Like to make a deeper run. Whereas opposed to if you land and you're playing, the Clippers the first round, you know what I mean? And then it's like it just I think the Clippers is kind of like they're a bad matchup for them. So it's like I'm kind of hoping they avoid the Clippers as long as they could, you know what I mean? And then they go from there. But it'd be nice if they can get that 4th seed. That 5th seed, so they can play Denver. Like I think that would be that would be great for them.
Right.
All right. But with that said, sir, look, man, thank you so much for hopping on the Ave Podcast. I appreciate having you on, brother. And the one thing I'd like to add, I know you're mentioning that you're a Northwester by heart. With the Seattle Seahawks, I've been saying like the one way to entice Russell Wilson to stay is by buying up all of Ciara's albums. Have you done that yet?
I tell you right now, Ciara still bothers me, and I think she's a distraction. You hear me? Russell, man, I remember him when he first came to the league. He talking about, go Hawks and all this stuff. He still does and everything, but he was that wholesome guy, and all of a sudden he just turned into Hollywood too. And I'm seeing remnants of LeBron right now. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. But I will say this, though. I think he's done well by basically challenging management by saying, you know what? I've been asking you guys to protect me, to get in a legitimate O-line, and you haven't done it. So now I basically had to tell you, you know what? I want out. And I will give you the 4 or 5 teams that I want that may possibly give me that. And then basically put the Seattle management with their backs against the wall, and they say, all right, fine, we'll give you O-line, at least something. And I feel like they put a couple pieces in there where it's not that bad. He can older anyways. It's a little too late, but Russell, with his loyalty, I feel like he's willing to say, all right, I'll give you that chance again. If you don't give me what I need, then by all means, I tell you right now, I'm out of here. Might pull Aaron Rodgers on you.
Yeah, I think he's going to stay. I think he's going to, at least for this season, I think he's going to stay. I feel sorry against some 49ers, though, so I hope he gets that O-line intact. For his sake. I like him too. But I hope he gets that O-line intact when they play in my squad. Tell you that right now.
You might want to hit that end button right now. Talking about these 49ers, man. Get out of here with that.
Pray for Bill. Thank you for tuning in to the Ave Podcast. Special shout out goes out to Anthony Batchelor and Bill Gagne for coming on the Ave to discuss the play-in episode. We'll be back next week as we get into NBA playoff mode and break down the results of this tournament. Also, on May 28th, a new episode of The Stoop will be out on the South Shore Ave YouTube channel called Code of the Sneaks. This is for the sneakerheads. Check it out once again on May 28th. There's more details to come, I promise you. And check out SouthShoreAve.com for all my podcast episodes. Once again, that's SouthShoreAve.com. For Bill Gagne and Anthony Batchelor, this is Cal C. And you just tuned in to the Ave Podcast on South Shore Ave Radio. Until next time, folks, peace. We out.